to the Sean Bond Show on Wolf Spirit Radio. Broadcast on the fourth Monday of the month at 7 p.m. PST. Sean will take you through the astral byways and highways and bring you back home ready for the next show. Here's your host, Sean Bond.
Hello, happy holidays. I hope everyone had a wonderful couple of holidays and New Year's and Christmas and all the stuff that brings us together and changes our reality bubbles for a little bit, and we cope with that in whatever way it is, good or bad. Because there's lots going on. How are you, JP?
Well, as you say, there's lots been going on, even though I haven't been anywhere. But, it's like we're watching everything unfold that we've been talking about. I played tonight a show, two shows that were actually my very first shows. I started at some point. Very first shows 7 years ago in 2010. Is it 7 years ago? Yeah, it was just in October 2010, so it's not, 7.5 years ago. And we were talking about the things that are happening now as, well, they're eventually going to happen, or we hope these things are going to happen, and all these things. So it's wonderful to see them all playing out, the
right.
big mass arrest and the ETs being taken off, the bad ETs being taken off the Earth and all that sort of stuff. So, we've been talking previously about various uninvited guests and helping that to sort out. So, what's been going on for you, Sean?
A lot. Let's see. What should that doesn't invite too much attack in public? Projecting. Let me see. Okay, well, there's a lot. I've been focusing on myself a lot and healing, because there's been a lot of drama going on in the planet, and its entanglements are very much felt by me and the people around me quite a bit. Imagine spirits that are make up a stream of light that separates and branches off like a tree, and then those going into simultaneously existing incarnations all around the planet, and then them doing certain missions and things and agendas and themes, what they want to manifest on the timeline to try to last in the future, and they can all interact and help each other as that branch of tree of one. And they also have a group or that they will go along with in soul group or soul family, and depending degrees of separation, and also chess moves, because they are usually doing some type of commerce, trade, interaction, drama, wars, or disputes that need resolution, and then it all culminating to more and more resolution, and then playing out. It's a big Game of Thrones kind of thing, but even more advanced. And everyone has a chess move in this, especially when they can interact with their higher self chains, not in a negative way, but going back in connections of creations and separations from each other to be their own individual, but still connect to the whole of that spirit. And then them playing out games in different spectrums of reality bubble, on surface, underground, inner earth, the different dimensional bandwidths, realms of this planet, and then that all happening in the background, and sometimes people get bleed-overs of it, or at least amalgamation, they'll have something happen in their reality that it's an anchor that allows them, through whatever technology they've accumulated through DNA, spiritual, or whatever, to resolve more and more amounts of stuff that comes up, and their reality expands through it integrating into them, and them becoming, if they're open to it and have the technology to perceiving more about it, so they can learn every aspect of it, to resolving it with the super DNA technology that they have, to a crazy amount, and then also having like commerce with other versions of herself, having like resolution for drama, making the world a better place, and it kind of like all culminating down from all these layers and dimensions and unseen existences, then kind of put everything in working towards what manifests on this timeline for a game that is very big in scope and how many players and time travel and all these things. So there's a lot going on for every little single manifestation, and there's a lot of unpredictable nature, and the timeline changes all the time. But there are beings that have a projected timeline that they want to create and what they want to maintain in this forming to be that, or at least close to what that is. And those also exist in the like those future places, like in the ancient future now, if you know how like time works, where it's like all flows into one. And but I'm not allowed to talk yet. I need to explain better about time, otherwise people will not really understand it. But let's see. Someone's taking my thought on this. 1 second. Okay. Sorry. I'm having like text messages. Sorry. Okay, let's. Okay, how's your holiday been? I'm gonna like also be resolving with whatever's talking to me right now telepathically.
Right. Well, my holiday was working. You know, I work every day. You know, with this, I keep the stream running. And although some of it is automated, a lot of it is manually charged by me being here. So, yeah. But we had a nice quiet time, and so it was. You know, we ate nicely and enjoyed some mead, which is a favourite now, and we'll probably be something that once or twice a month, maybe. I don't know how intense. Maybe on ceremonies and things like that. But it's a lovely drink, and I don't want to overdo it. Is that enough to to get going?
I love honey mead. I don't know. It brings back a lot of memories, like of like beekeeper days, of like working those like types of mystery schools and working with the bees. And like I used to make it in a life, and it brings it back every time I drink like honey mead.
Fabulous.
How about you? Also tea, like it's like too many lives to count for tea. So there, you know, and it always like it like that joy that comes out of it. Like, ever question why you don't get that with just water? Hot water, you just add a little tea leaf and make it your own magical amplification to your experience.
Yeah, it doesn't have that warm yumminess. A glass of water. But there you go. So, yeah, so treaties and things. What's been going on with the world of the Naga, for instance? Let's narrow it down a bit.
Okay. Let me see what and when I
Naga
say
saga.
When I ask my spiritual entourage and my higher self and like the secretaries of awareness for future timelines, what am I allowed to say? I'm not doing it about my like comments will say handlers and stuff. No. It's about giving certain types of information at certain times where they can be perceived the best and not like allow any information to be weaponized. And I feel that deeply when I cross those lines in a little way, and I don't, because like I have to solve that drama later and whatever it affects. So that's why. So Naga. New stuff with them. They've been because I haven't been looking into that much. It's mostly been, for me, things coming in drama of DNA lineage awareness beings that are trying to suppress beings in their DNA lineage or harvest energy off them through that DNA technology, and then trying to keep that that energy siphoning thing going in unawareness and suppression of the beings so they don't become powerful enough to stop them, or even whatever threat that is. And that's based on a lot of people and what they have in their DNA and what's bleeding over, and they can create whatever rules they want for any of those beings interacting with their DNA, especially if they're aware of what it is and if they can prevent it from like stealing their energy to counter their chess move, and then keep reopening that DNA energetic interaction system. So let's see, Nagas, going back, they are still they're pretty much always engaging in battle in some way. They like secret warfare, so they'll do infiltrations. They seem to be good with like a Black Ops sort of technology in like get in, get out, get missions, jobs. So they're very mission oriented. They're not as there's lots of different factions. So I can't blanket term them at all because they have like different customs and cultures based on where they existed, where they branched off into groups, and how their society developed. So let me see, what am I allowed to go into on the Galactic news for that? Okay, they're having territorial disputes in islands and tunnel systems that connect secret bases in like islands off the in the Pacific Ocean, off the coast of like Japan, in different regions, like a lot of them. Why? There seems to be some ancient technology that they're not fully aware of, but have been tipped off that it is incredibly valuable when you get interaction ability with this ancient technology that goes back really, really far. Like really ancient Lemuria and it's before Mu and all that. Okay. So that's kind of like some things that are going on, but like, have you seen, I also want to, like, besides global updates, empower the individual. Is that okay?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Have you seen the new Star Wars?
No, everybody else has, but not me.
It's really good. I don't want to spoil anything, so I won't. But there's some very interesting concepts throughout the Star Wars genre that go into many different avenues. So, like, have you, like, explored some of this in your thought process of, like, oh, what if I'm able to become that, a psionically emergent being, and expand on it immensely? Jedis, like, we can cover, like, quite a bit of spectrum in that metaphor that George Lucas created, with many different layers and esoteric knowledge to create an even influence from magic in many different ways. Or the Egypt, there's like some rituals there, as well as ancient time, like Lemuria, like with what we're talking about, where some psionic being could understand the very fabric of matter and be able to reprogram it into a supercomputer, or know that it already exists as a supercomputer in any form it is, and then reshapes it, tasks it, and has a mechanism for interaction that lasts throughout time in some type of object that could last throughout time pretty easily, like a really hard stone or a mountain or something, whatever, like little technology. If it's good, it's durable. It'll last like millennia or 1,000 years or whatever. Yeah, and so let's go into like, how would you become a Jedi? Well, there's lots of different ways. Like, well, let's see what they did in culture. There's many different cultures that have gone into abilities being dormant and activated in certain people and DNA lineages, and then revering those DNA lineages, or they rising to power in some shape or form, and then sometimes even being usurped, and then the whole thing getting degraded over time, or information being smashed because of the threat it could have to future monarchies of usurping them if they're like not, proper ruler material for a society that's enslaved think, that is trying to heal from becoming enslaved think, by bringing up what are the programs that anchor that, and then healing them and resolving them all. Lots of stuff with that. But how about Mitichlorian? Do you have anything interesting you want to go into that you've thought about?
Midichlorians. Is it a real thing? Because there was a guy who he used to go on Christy Aphrodite's show and read people's midichlorian levels and things like that. What's the thing about? I mean, do we have a thing called that?
It's not quite called that, but it is. Yes, we do. We have actually made different versions of it. It's like, let's how their description of it. So it's like what goes into the soft disclosure of this concept. It's a symbiotic organism, bacterial or energetic, because there's both. There's and that like goes into a whole other subjects, because it leaves it a little open door in like how to build upon that in description or pointing in that direction. We have many different symbiotic organisms in our body. For instance, like mitochondria, which is pretty much exactly like that in concept. It's a symbiotic organism that grew with us in evolution, where our cells would automatically replicate them and produce them in each cell. So we have one in each cell going out. The majority of our Mitichlorian are in our heart, which goes into our heart technology and its amplification to generate huge amounts of energy and ATP and other stuff. Because there's more than just what mainstream science will go into, or maybe they don't know, but like, hey, they're getting there. There just seems to be like, oh, we've found everything. Don't worry about that. With that subject. So there's many different parts of a cell that you can become aware of in how it works as technology, because technology that we have externally is pretty much based on DNA, because DNA was first, and we're seeing how it processes things and then wanting to create that ourselves, and what we're able to do based on building upon it from previous generations. Anyway, so symbiotic beings, you can scan your body to see like how many are operating with you, like how their spiritual mechanics work, how they're anchored into that cell. They have their own DNA. It's like there's like chromosomes. I think it's like inherited from the woman, and like you have a lineage of mitochondria coming from each woman, going back. They have their own territory, meaning if you're healing yourself and they don't like you, you're not able to heal them until they like you. So, and I scan most people, they don't like their symbiotic host. They have a consciousness that kind of connects together in a hive-like system. So like there's also a whole Game of Thrones thing with that in territory, because some beings know this technology and are invading it negatively. So they're actually holding up a spiritual weight by being there with you. And they can either be limited to 1% or in full potential of what they can do. Most people are at 1% because they're against their host, not helping them. Sometimes they have a system of producing energy, but they also limit when they're not in full symbiotic interaction with the host, or whatever you want to call the person that they're in. It limits their abilities because they're not in full sovereignty, because they're giving away their power if you see it as an individual cell. So you can see it as a city, and you, as the I am presence of the spirit of the body, of the cells replicating from the heart, and that spark being in the heart, and you sitting in that seat in your heart and power to audit all things usurping control or in competition in the body, and bring it into harmony, so that the entire you are in the peak of the hierarchy of the internal self, and you're claiming your energy, your power, your ability. It helps to have unity in the entire hierarchical order of the self, so there's no internal back doors into self-defeating programs for the person that limits them in many different ways, and there's many different layers to it, besides even this that we're just talking about. So each part of the anatomy of the mitochondria can also be looked into to see how it can amplify what programs it has to amplify a system symbiotically. Usually what it does as a function physically will have a hint to what it does, as well as what can be expanded upon. Like, instance, some organs can, and like parts of your body can amplify time, and your ability to interact with time, such as the jaw and the teeth, time crystals of the teeth. And then them have a sensitivity in the nerve, which is one of the most sensitive nerves in the body, for seeing if you're getting incurred temporally in your timeline or other timelines bleeding over, and that kind of goes hand in hand. Okay, so there's that, and then when I first found out about this concept, when I was going into anatomy, I did a little meditation to try to become friends with my mitochondria. If you're wanting to do this, it will take a long time, because there's a lot of things you gotta resolve, because things want to make them angry by constantly attacking them so they don't become immunity. So it will take a few days or weeks. It depends on how psionic you are and how many things are trying to stop you. It may take, for me, as an instance, it took a day to do one mitochondria, and then I got faster and better at it as I learned the whole system of it and how to become friends with this. There's also it's kind of like video games where there's an achievement, except it is an actual foundation of your spirit, where you, in Native American culture, totems, animal totems, as a symbolic representation of growth, and also a literal programming aspect of the light body or whatever, because there's multiple totems for abilities, you got a wolf in dancing, or songwrite, making music, in skill, this psionic ability, in programming plants, in all these kind of things. There's whole setups for how to make this game of life better that have already been made, and can be built upon with free will, because it's a very expansive free will oriented system. But in the ranges, if you're not negatively affecting free will or going against natural law, which is why understanding natural law and the real aspects of what is very important to getting the universe in alignment with you, which is the whole thing of becoming one with the Force, reaching out and grabbing and becoming one and feeling the Force inside you and feeling one with it, and that mechanism as a growing process that every time you like sit and meditate into it, it amplifies your ability to become one with the universe and do the to-do list in the mystery school of what it requires to go up its clear in space process of interacting with it at a greater rate that also can enter into different bubbles of reality, such as interacting with other people, which you got to interact with those rules and the rules of the land. It's not the easiest planet to become psionic on Earth right now because it's of the huge amount of games and drama here and limitation and rules and all this other stuff because of all the shit, I mean, the stuff that happened in the past that would, if we had kept going down that route, it would have caused great destructions and screwed up the timeline in the future. So it's like a training course for who is actually worthy by base what they're not going to do in the future, and they learn from mistakes and things that like make the reality worse just by like not caring about them or whatever. And then like lots of beings already having a mantle place of responsibility and protecting that to continue as a growth process so that nothing too catastrophic happens on this timeline. Mitochondria, like, so they have lots of things about them. You also have, totems. It's an extension of your light body, like Expecto Patronus. They go into symbology based on usually what you've been. Like you may have been this animal before, or other aspects of your tree are existing as those, even to the now or in the future. And then also like your DNA lineage, what you have, because we also have animal DNA, as like even mainstream science will go into with the evolutionary process, which is a thing and does happen in many different rates, and it can become in the control of the individual if they know the technology of how evolution works and all the different facets of it. Anyway, yeah. In the DNA, we also have some DNA technology, not everyone, and also it can vary depending on the individual and how everything came together in their past of DNA lineages coming together of people having children, where shape-shifting DNA has found its way into the genetic pool in many different ways and is kept going dormant, usually for the rules of this game, but like can sometimes be activated, and then be able to interact with that on a greater level, especially if they have the totem and the totem branch of that technology of achievement, which is like a programming archetypal management that has its own intelligence that branches off from your intelligence, and you can send it off to do missions, go to different places, and people can see them, come to them. You can learn from them, go on journeying and follow them to different places in the mind, in the meditation and the trance. And they show up to you in physical form sometimes, or you're even granted them at those moments that sometimes when those animals show to you in your reality. There's lots of ways to earn them. It is kind of like a video game in that regard. So like, especially when you know you can earn them and are seeking to earn them, you can start processing that at a greater level and can go at it faster. So it's like adding to your life in a great way. Every area has different totems, and they usually will like grow upon that over time of what they allow and who are the. You usually can get them from animals in the area by like spiritually having a body go to them in commerce, especially if you're protected, because not all these beings are friendly towards humans. So like there's a way you learn how to interact with them, and then you do their to-do list and you become friends with them and ask for that in that achievement, and then you can have many different simultaneously programs going on at once that eventually become effortless to expand your evolution and have things going. Like also the shadow self has has some totems, which I'm also going to show. I'm going to put up where as if the shadow self and the ego is programmed to be the adversary of the self, to limit the abilities of the person based on what's been passed down the DNA. The ego also exists in spiritual form, but it usually goes through a big cleansing through the death and life review process. And it has many different functions if it's working properly, in survival and maintaining greater evolution as a constant oppositional force for like seeing how to bring a person onto a better timeline. This can be very hijacked, and the ego will then be turned into the opposer, and then it will limit that person, and they won't grow as fast, and they'll sustain more attacks internally, emotionally, spiritually. They can be programmed to want to own you, like the person. Like some people are very ego driven, where the ego owns them, and then like there's whole mystery schools into getting back into control of that and healing the ego and facing the pain and healing it, which it hides behind. And so many things with that. But Mitichlorian. Mitichlorian also there's a microflora totem concept to a person where they're gaining technology in programming the whole aspect of awareness of microflora and bacteria, fungus, and viruses, etc., phages, all that. So you can earn that totem by becoming one with all your Mitichlorian, and eventually over time, like especially when people are able to check if they're fully in unity and not just thinking they are. And then there's a belief technology with that too that amplifies it, but like you gotta know that really well and be able to monitor when it's peaking to the amount of belief energy that you need to help manifest that at a faster rate. And you can do it with ceremonial time. There's lots of different ways to do that, but sometimes it will take multiple ceremonies to do it, or whatever amplification time. And you can also set it to go automatically. But like I also do that where I can easily, very quickly, because I've trained and healed my Mitichlorian because they interact with each other spiritually, with other people too. Sometimes you meet a person where they're completely at war with the other person's Mitichlorian, and they might like each other. Like in the other aspect, for some reason they're limiting or sharing programs or imprinting them onto each other. They can, when they're fully limited, to very little % of what they can do, they can expand spiritually to the quarantine. Usually if they're in disunity with you, they'll start becoming unity with themselves in whatever power spectrum they have, and then have like an aspect of themselves spiritually that spreads to the end of this quarantine on this planet. Sometimes they can press past that. It depends on is hijacking that technology to do that and make it just in disarray. But everything can be healed, so I can absolutely help people if they want to unlock that, because I've brought them to ability where they can heal other mitochondria. I was going to say Mitichlorian. So yeah, and then you're working at a greater output if people's mitochondria at a greater rate. One mitochondria can expand spiritually to the ends of the galaxy, and even grow past that depending on the relationship with the person and what they do in territory and what they're approved of. It all varies based on the individual and what they're dealing with and what has been passed down to them this lifetime too. So I can also range that and help the individual. And also other symbiotic relations, you can become friends with your ego, it be fully healed, but also it grows with you and becomes a super ego, so you're constantly going to be doing new things and learning new stuff about it. They have their own, ego has their own territory too. Other symbiotic relations I've also seen in the body, things having to do with the third eye, where it depends on the DNA. Somebody, like, I can read into your DNA as an example if you'd like.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
Yeah, okay. So, we'll go, I'm also gonna help you, JP, with your, metachlorians, over time in what, Rube Goldberg mechanism where it just starts running.
Okay.
You wanna do that? Yeah. Yeah, they don't like you as much. They don't like most anyone I see. So like, unless you're like showing them respect and acknowledging them, and actually like, it's usually when you're interacting with your cells and cell magic at a greater level that they'll start responding positively to you if you're not like directly focused on them. So we're going to start getting them to like you, and then more of a symbiotic relationship. It's not that they don't like you because of who you are or anything. It's their program to not like you by all the different things impeding on them. And they're like, hey, man, you're not paying attention to us at all. Why should we help you? We're getting spiritually wrecked over here, and every day you're doing a radio show, all that kind of stuff. But like as you're able to resolve their stuff and make sure there is no negative program which I can help with the person, that you can start healing them entirely and resolve whatever problems anchored them to stop them from growing. So I'm doing that. And then symbiotic relations. What are some stuff in your body that you'd like to improve?
Well, this big belly, it shouldn't be here, should it?
Okay. Anything else?
Teeth.
Teeth. Thyroid. How about your third eye?
Any of my eyes, actually. My first and second would be fine as well. They can do with a bit of an MOT. Oh, an MOT is what we have in Britain to make sure our car's in tune.
Okay. All right, yeah, we can do that. Okay, so for the stomach, and that usually goes with the metabolism as well, so the thyroid, as an anchored technology, as an organ that can pass down DNA abilities from past generations that you've inherited that allow you as an option to access them if you want. I'm going to first ask what I'm allowed to talk about in air, because I'm sure there's some DNA lineages that just not everyone is allowed to know about. So I'm going to ask your higher self and entourage and DNA lineage ancestors what I'm allowed to talk about on air, and then we can build upon it as concepts flow out to the public. Okay. So the thyroid one you've inherited. Okay. How many am I allowed to? Okay, I'll give you this as an example because you want this to happen first. I'll also go into the other stuff. You're going to take care of one territory first, and I'm going to help you to do it very fast, which sometimes it can take a long time to get rid of all the negative programs trying to limit it. Essentially, these somewhat act like totems in a way because they're like a branching off aspect of your light body, but they have their own territory, it seems, and they have been made by different DNA lineage creators or programmers that somehow manifested that concept and passed it down. Like, imagine like in Egypt, like they have on the tombs and the sarcophagus all these little symbology of animal spirits like the cobra or the vulture or the eagle or things that are resting on the third eye. That's the concept that I'm bringing into, where they have activated a symbiotic aspect of themselves that has their own technology, has their personality. It's like a branching off version of you. This can exist in spirit form, especially in the being in awareness and passing it down in light body DNA. It's also passed down in physical DNA. Depends on what you have.
Is that like the little Buddha on top of the Buddha? And the Buddha on top of his head. Or is that something more?
It's similar. But not. That's a little different. So that's interesting. What do you know about that?
Well, you see them on the Buddha statues, don't you? And it's like that's the Buddha that is behind the Buddha, the soul and its monad, and how it appears in our dimension, but is obviously inversely sized. So it's actually really much bigger, but they're depicting it as smaller because of the dimensions. Long story. Anyway, does that make sense?
Yeah. When I scan into that concept, I see it as a little different technology, but you're onto something pretty interesting.
Okay, so tell me about what you were saying. This is like there's is this like an elemental ancestor of mine? The thing that my being grew out of. Does that make sense? Is that what it is?
You have those. That's that's another technology we could go into. This is like it formed from your spirit. It can have been formed long ago and it existed in the concept. Like imagine a person that's incarnated now that got a memory wipe, and then before in like direct line of incarnations or whatever. They used to be like an Egyptian pharaoh or something, and then they achieved a spiritual technology then, or even before them, because a lot of pharaohs already achieved high spirituality in other lives, and then established a relationship with their third eye and gave it a personality and archetype to where they can give it its own ability to evolve and learn and grow and deal with things. Like if it's like on the third eye, for example, it might be given a task and program to be good and to amplify the anchored being's ability to see into many different spectrums and dimensions. And each it depends on how powerful they are and what each DNA lineage is programmed into. Like the ones when I went into, like some of the easier ones, I don't know if everyone has this. Depends on what you got. Like there's eagle that or snake, king, cobra, jaguar, lion, owl, all dragons, scorpions, unicorn, some other stuff. There's all kinds of things I've found that beings can have. So, and you tune into what they do when they start becoming in union with you, and I can help people with this as well, because sometimes they can be very badly programmed and limited, and then have that limitation also amplify the limitation of the person. So, like, if you're like good friends with your symbiotic relationship with, it's like an aspect of yourself, in light body, but it mainly focuses on third eye technology as an instance. Being able to tune into the bandwidth perception with eyesight and third eye overlay for the infrared spectrum of the environment, or astral vision, dream vision. There's etheric vision. There's all kinds of it's like every elemental bandwidth has a ability to see in the environment at a greater level. So you can do that as an example. And if it's anchored into something else like the thyroid, it can be maintaining a greater radiation shield of the being and being able to process radiation that's input into the body. Most of it goes into the thyroid, which is why we get radiation thyroid cancer when that happens, as well as the immune system parts of that and the metabolism for the weight and the maintaining of whatever status of body chemistry it needs to be in optimum capacity and homeostasis, and also like detox in the lymphatic system and other stuff. And they will go into taking those tasks. So it's like a weight off your shoulders, and it's like an amplification of you. And it's not like you're working with other beings, because like you always want to be careful with that. But if it's a version of you and you're like working to, they're already activated usually, but they don't usually want to work with every one of the hosts or think they're ready to. So it's like, okay, you're ready for this guardian symbiotic relationship and this one, and then when you're done with that, it goes on. And it's like a to-do list. See what you're ready for. So we're gonna work with that. So I'm seeing what you're inheriting with your thyroid. I'm allowed to talk about 9 guardians, symbiotic relationship, whatever you want to call it, with your thyroid. So let's tune into what they are. You can also close your eyes to see and ask them to appear to you in symbolic behavior, and sometimes they will. Let's see here. Already I'm getting, okay, what's the first one I'm allowed to work on? Because you want to do it like in an order that's easy, so you can get faster at it in a learning curve. So you're not just like working at it on a big one and over time. But the first one that's coming to me, you have a dragon lineage from Celtic DNA. Yeah, it's like a druid concept coming in with westernized dragon concept. So a third eye relationship with that. It's like it's an elemental. So I guess that intuition was coming over too. It's good at elemental work too, because it learns from why. Oh yeah, because the relationship. Let's see how this origin. Okay, so this is a concept that was created as a symbiotic relationship with another dragon other than the person that first made it, and then they passed down the concept so a person could produce this with their own spirit branching off into this technology as like a glove or something, or a hermit crab shell in technology. So you got past that down, and then it's like a raven. There's and tell me if any animal comes to you, and I'll.
It's very interesting. As you were talking about that, I could sense it felt like I was watching a machine that kind of switched itself on. It had enormous cogs that lined themselves up as it kind of rotated. There was like cogs inside the machine, like they were inside a big gearbox or something like that, and they were just slowly coming, very gracefully, slowly coming into alignment. That was quite interesting.
Okay, so what would you say your senses were being used during that process of, it's like a daydream concept? Your third eye was working, was your clairaudience, did you get like a sound familiar concept to it? What was coming over in that?
Nothing, I don't have very clear inner visions, it's like, almost like line drawings on a grey background sort of thing.
Yeah, that's your third eye. So you're projecting into. Ooh, yeah. Something's activating with that. Like, whose perception is that? Okay, yeah. So I'm gonna initiate. So this goes faster through the filter. Managing perception. Working on your thyroid and your third eye simultaneously. So you're allowed to know about the one that's. What is this concept? Oh, okay. So this is an ability that grows great with your technology, which goes into the whole physical technology of being a programmer, where you can see the psionic projections that are created through electricity and electronic systems, and you've formulated some things automatically and over inspiration, where if you have gears as a system where everything's flowing and each of the gears represents a program that's all in balance, and as you bring it more into balance and you find ways to make that operating system better, you can make it really great functionally with any technology you overlay it with, or your environment, your sacred space, and the balancing systems of yourself in any electrical nature you have, because we are electrical beings. And that is a perception coming over to you from, let me see, your third eye guardian. Oh yeah, it is the electrical dragon. So okay. Interesting. So, let me see. Okay, so the dragon that we talked about first, that was the first thing that came up, and you felt it too. That was interesting. It's for your third eye, and I'm also I was naming off after that the ones for your thyroid. So, but that was the one that appeared to me with a roar in my mind, and that's cool that you confirmed that.
Yeah, it had. It's interesting. There was a floating feeling about this mechanism. It felt like everything, like the mechanism itself, was, let me say, it's more like a barrel sort of thing, and within the barrel were moving parts like cogs or the inside of a bicycle gear. But it was like it was gently floating into position, like it had been held out of balance, and it's like if you hold down maybe a compass you have a magnetic needle in the water and you push it down, it'll eventually return to back into its equilibrium in the magnetic field, and that's what it felt like. It was like somebody had pulled out a shoe or something.
Now, just getting that blur, because the dragon emitted a bunch of energy to allow you to see that vision, and it has been doing it throughout your life a little bit, because it likes you 99%, but is also getting overwhelmed a bit. So that's been working with you since your birth, and so it's giving you intuition to build upon your operating systems, because you already have this going, but you can build upon it and you can add it to everything you do, and that's a really great piece of wisdom. Do you feel like it's going to amplify your life quite a bit?
Well, like I said, it felt like something coming into balance, and well, we'll see. We'll see what it does, and see what effects it will have on us and myself in the next few days. So
this protector was limited to the quarantine of the Earth. Now that you're working with it, it can expand. It can see into more spectrums with this, and bring you this awareness and inspiration to help it with your career. And as your symbiotic relationship grows, and you work with it, and you can communicate, you can exchange all that. It's just, there's a lot of limitless potentials for how your ability to see, and you're going to be able to see in this spectrum a lot more, and especially if you make a switch and knob operating system with tuning into this, because you're also going to learn other spectrums that you can see into besides electricity. And it's there's visual images that will start coming to you. It's kind of like think about Nikola Tesla. He had a whole bunch of these, and they're helping them bring vision to him, and he had a whole internal laboratory and workshop inside his mind that could produce these, and he has assistants that help him with that and that guardianship, and he had a lot of wisdom.
He was amazing with I love the drawings. You ever see those fantastic drawings that he used to? Listen, we're just about out of time, Sean. Again, a fascinating journey. Thank you, and thanks to my elementals for looking after me. And we'll find out what that dragon, that 1%, what is the 1% of the dragon want?
It's not you upsetting it. It's mostly it having to deal with beings trying to limit your third eye at all given times, and it needs help doing that with awareness and more awareness into it, because you can heal it while healing yourself. Just realize it has its own technology, and it can choose if it wants you to heal it or not, and it has been wanting to heal. It's been healing, so you can monitor how many negative connections into it, and then break or cut those and get rid of them and prevent them from future, so that it's happy, comfortable, and able to grow at its exponential rate at
Fabulous.
At doing what it does.
Fabulous, Sean. Any any gigs this week? As I say, in the next couple of weeks, have you got any appearances coming up? Interviews?
I will be doing lots of appearances. If you want to, I will start giving more ads on my Facebook and Silver Cord Spiritual Science and Silver Cord ss.com, and on YouTube. Just go ahead and subscribe, and you'll get like lots more videos. And I hope to be producing more of these outputted wise. I'd like to work with you to get them on your channel too.
Sure, we're always. I mean, you never look. If you want to get together with a group and produce shows within yourselves, I'm happy to offer airtime. We've got Tuesdays and Fridays still waiting for people.
I'd love to be on it, and I can bring a bunch of people on, and we can have like lots of very fantastic multidimensional conversations.
Fabulous. Sean Bond, thank you very much, and good night for now.
Good night.